Imagine the moment they turned their back on you. No warning, no explanation, just a cold, deliberate departure, leaving you to face the weight of your own brokenness. You replayed their last words over and over, wondering if you could have done something differently, if you could have been more in some way to make them stay. Yet deep down, in the hollow quiet that followed, you knew this was no accident. It was the sharp edge of betrayal disguised as indifference, the echo of a door closing in the corridors of your heart. The nights that followed were not measured in hours, but in the slow drip of tears that carried unspoken prayers. You smiled for the world, but behind closed doors you sank into the ache, the kind of ache that steals the breath from your lungs and makes even the smallest task feel like a mountain. They didn't just walk away from you. They walked away from the kindness you gave freely, from the trust you offered without question, from the version of yourself you poured into their life with quiet devotion. It is here, in these unseen valleys of the soul, that God does his most astounding work. Not when the applause is loud, not when the room is full, but when the silence is deafening and the world has turned its face away from you. It is here that heaven leans close. Unseen hands gather your tears, and the author of your story begins to write a chapter so beautiful it will leave even you speechless. Have you considered that perhaps their leaving was the unlocking of something greater? That the wound they left was not the end of your worth, but the beginning of a divine unveiling? For God's ways are not our ways, and his favor is often prepared in shadows before it bursts into light. The same people who doubted you will have no choice but to witness what he does next. This is not about revenge. This is not about proving them wrong with your own strength. No, this is about the quiet justice of heaven, the way God lifts a life others thought was finished, the way he sets a table for you in the presence of those who once dismissed you. His favor does not whisper, it resounds. And when it comes, it will be so undeniable, so unexpected, that the same mouths that once spoke against you will have no words left to speak at all. You see, when they left you in pain, they thought they had reduced your story to a final sentence, a sad ending. But the author is still writing. And when God writes, the plot does not end with your defeat. It rises toward a climax of restoration so radiant that it silences the cynics and awakens hope in those watching from the sidelines. Picture it. The very people who shook their heads at your struggle will have to stand in the light of your breakthrough. They will see the doors that open for you without their help, the blessings that arrive without their permission, the joy that blooms in your life without their presence. And they will know, not because you said it, but because God himself declared it through his actions, that his hand has been upon you all along. So, if you are still carrying the sting of their absence, if you still feel the echo of their rejection, hear this: your pain is not wasted. God is not finished. The season you are stepping into will be marked by a favor so astonishing it will not only heal the wounds they left, but also reveal to the world the one who has been walking with you all this time. The question is, are you ready to believe that this next chapter is not about what you lost, but about what is about to be revealed? Because today I want to share with you 7 profound truths about what happens when God's favor arrives after they have left you in pain and walked away. When God's favor begins to move in your life after such a season of abandonment, the first thing he does is shift the unseen atmosphere around you. Long before anyone else notices, heaven has already changed the narrative. It is quiet at first, almost imperceptible, like the faint stirrings of dawn before the sun rises. You may not feel different immediately, but in the spiritual realm, There is a gathering of light, a preparation of opportunities, and a rearranging of circumstances that will position you for what is to come. The same ground where you once felt buried in disappointment is being tilled for a harvest you cannot yet imagine. This is why the waiting often feels strange, because you are being prepared for something so far beyond the reach of human explanation that only time and God's unfolding hand will reveal it. People may have walked away thinking they left you diminished, but in truth, they only cleared the space for God to work without interference. There is no competition for His glory here. No one else can take credit for what He is about to do. It is important to understand that divine favor is not merely about material gain or public recognition, although those may come. It is about God marking you as His own in a way that can't be hidden. Favor is the shift that turns rejection into redirection, pain into purpose, and endings into beginnings. When He places His favor upon you, doors open without effort, resources arrive without you begging, and answers appear before the question is fully formed on your lip. But here is the beauty of this process. When that favor begins to manifest, it doesn't just touch your life quietly, it speaks. It speaks to the very people who underestimated you, to those who thought they had the power to define your future. Without you lifting a finger in retaliation, God's favor becomes your defense, your vindication, and your testimony. And it will be undeniable, not because you tried to display it, but because God's work cannot be hidden any more than the rising sun can be stopped from breaking the horizon. You will not have to chase validation. It will come in the form of undeniable evidence that heaven has been on your side all along. And when it comes, it will be so timely, so perfectly aligned, that the same ones who once turned away will have no choice but to witness the difference in you. No, the truest and safest are the friends who have backed and braced you even. The second work God does through His favor is restoration, but not in the way the world understands it. Human restoration often tries to bring back what was lost, exactly as it was before, but divine restoration is different. It multiplies. It does not simply replace, it exceeds. God's restoration carries the weight of justice. He sees the hours you cried when no one cared, the moments you stayed silent when you could have defended yourself, the times you gave generously, even while being overlooked. Every one of those sacrifices, every hidden pain, is accounted for in His restoration plan. And when He restores, He does it in a way that makes it clear your story could not have unfolded any other way. The very gap they left in your life becomes the space God fills with abundance. What once was a source of sorrow becomes a testimony so radiant that you will not even desire to return to what was lost. This is why, when His favor restores, it does not come timidly. It arrives boldly, with opportunities that fit you better than the ones you chased before. It brings relationships that see your worth without having to be convinced. It opens doors so wide that no human rejection could ever have stopped them. And the most striking part is that the world, including those who left you, will be able to see that this was no accident, no coincidence, no stroke of luck. It will be obvious that God Himself has authored your comeback. Even they will have to acknowledge, in the quiet of their own thoughts, if not with their lips, that the hand of God has been upon you. And you, standing in the fullness of that restoration, will finally understand why their absence was necessary, because if they had stayed, they might have tried to claim a share in what only God deserves the glory for. There is also a humbling truth that comes with God's favor. It often elevates you in the sight of those who once looked down on you, but it does so without requiring you to stoop to their level. This is the third move of God's hand. Public elevation burst from private surrender. When you were in pain, You may have been tempted to prove yourself, to show them that you were worth keeping, to defend your name when whispers and lies tried to stain it. But instead you held your peace. And while it looked like weakness to some, in heaven it was counted as strength, because restraint is the language of trust. You trusted that God would fight for you, and in doing so, you removed the need to battle in your own strength. This is why, when the moment of elevation comes, it carries with it an undeniable weight of authenticity. You did not manipulate your way into this blessing. You did not campaign for their approval. You simply stayed faithful, even when it felt like no one noticed. Now, that very faithfulness becomes the platform on which God sets you. This elevation will not feel like a sudden miracle to you, because you will know the hours of faith, the days of obedience, and the nights of silent endurance that preceded it. But to the world, it will look like you have been suddenly lifted, and those who left you will not be able to avoid seeing it. They may try to ignore it at first, to dismiss it as coincidence. But the consistency of your growth, the undeniable nature of the doors opening before you, will make it impossible to deny. God's kind of elevation has a way of drawing attention without you even trying. It's the kind that causes people to ask questions they once thought they already knew the answers to. They thought your story was over. They will now see it has only just begun. But this is not just about them seeing you differently. It is also about you seeing yourself differently. When God elevates you, He strips away the identity you once wore as the abandoned, the unwanted, the betrayed. You begin to walk in the reality of being chosen, protected, and appointed. This new perspective is critical because if you do not embrace it, you risk stepping into new blessings with an old mindset. God's favor does not just give you more, it makes you more. It reshapes your posture, your vision, your confidence, and without saying a word, you will carry yourself in a way that reflects the favor you now walk in. For which, as God, you have to take up the favor as a victim. You have to seek for your highest good and make sure it is your job. The fourth move God makes through His favor is vindication. The kind of vindication that needs no announcement, no confrontation, no proving of a point. When someone has left you in pain, especially after speaking against you or misrepresenting your heart, there is a deep human desire to set the record straight. But the beauty of divine vindication is that it requires no effort from you. God Himself becomes the author of your defense. He does not simply silence their words. He overrules them with the evidence of His blessing upon your life. Vindication from God has a way of reversing the narratives people have believed about you. Without you saying a single word, the fruit of your life becomes your response. And the more they watch you thrive, the more their false narratives collapse under the weight of undeniable truth. This is not about making them regret leaving you, though regret may come. It is about making it clear to everyone watching that your life was never in their hands to begin with. They did not have the power to define you, and they certainly did not have the power to destroy you. You may not hear them admit they were wrong. Many never will. But in the quiet spaces of their mind, they will know. They will remember the way they walked away, the words they spoke, the indifference they showed, and they will have to wrestle with the reality that despite it all, you rose, that despite their absence, your life blossomed, and that despite their silence in your pain, God's voice spoke louder in your breakthrough. Vindication from God leaves no room for confusion about where your help comes from. It is the kind of justice that makes it clear your victory is not the product of human hands, but the undeniable work of the Almighty. The fifth work of God's favor is transformation, not just of your circumstances, but of your very being. Pain has a way of leaving its fingerprints on your soul. It shapes the way you think, the way you see yourself, the way you approach life. When someone walks away and leaves you wounded, a part of you can become guarded, almost braced for more hurt. You start to expect disappointment as a defense mechanism, convincing yourself it's better to be ready for the worst than to hope for the best. But when God's favor begins to move, it dismantles that fortress you built around your heart. Not in a way that makes you vulnerable to harm, but in a way that makes you open to life again. You begin to notice small shifts first, a joy that comes without explanation, a sense of peace in situations that once triggered fear, a desire to dream again without being held hostage by what happened before. This is not something you force, it is something God does within you. He takes the ashes of what was and trades them for the beauty of what is being built. The bitterness that tried to take root is replaced by gratitude. The insecurity that whispered you weren't enough is silenced by a deep awareness that you are chosen. Slowly, without fanfare, you realize that the person who was left behind is not the same person now standing in God's light. And when that transformation becomes visible, it is impossible for others not to notice. The ones who left may not understand how you could emerge from what they assumed would break you, but they will see it. And in their seeing, there is a silent message. You are not defined by their presence, and you are certainly not diminished by their absence. This transformation is not about pretending the pain never happened. It is about allowing the pain to be the soil from which new strength, new wisdom, and new grace grow. It is about walking into every room as someone who has been refined by fire but not consumed by it. And that, my friend, is a testimony no one can take from you. The sixth move of God's favor is divine alignment, the precise, deliberate way He begins to arrange the right people, the right opportunities, and the right moments in your life. When you were left behind, it may have felt like you lost your place in the story, as though the script had been torn and the plot left unfinished. But in reality, God was clearing the stage for the right cast to step in. People often think favor is random, but it is anything but random. It is targeted, intentional, and deeply strategic. God knows exactly who needs to be in your life for the next chapter, and He is not afraid to remove those who cannot be trusted with your future. When His alignment begins, doors that once resisted you will suddenly open without struggle. Conversations will lead to opportunities you didn't have to chase. People who recognize your value will step into your life without you having to convince them of it. And here's the profound truth. Many of these blessings will come in ways that could never have happened if the ones who left had stayed. Their departure made room for better connections, deeper relationships, and higher callings. Sometimes, the pain of their absence blinds you to the necessity of their exit. But when divine alignment starts to unfold, you begin to see clearly. You realize that their chapter in your life was never meant to last forever, and clinging to them would have kept you from stepping into the fullness of what God prepared for you. And the very people who once walked away may watch in disbelief as doors open for you that were never offered to them. It won't be because you chased revenge. It will be because you chased God, and He led you into places their absence made possible. Divine alignment is the unmistakable signature of God's hand on your life. It reminds you that He is both the author and the editor of your story, cutting out what no longer serves you and introducing what will take you further than you dreamed. And when those alignments begin to bear fruit, the shock will not just belong to the world watching, it will belong to you, as you realize that the loss you once grieved was actually the gift you didn't know you needed. The seventh and final move of God's favor in a season like this is the unveiling of purpose. There comes a moment after the pain has been endured, the tears have been spent, and the favor has begun to manifest, when God pulls back the curtain and lets you see the why behind it all. This unveiling is often the most humbling part, because you realize that even in your deepest hurt, there was a thread of divine intention running through every scene. Nothing was wasted, not the betrayal, not the abandonment, not even the sleepless nights when you thought no good could come from what happened. When purpose is revealed, you begin to see that the rejection that once crushed you was actually a form of redirection. You were being moved away from people, places, and paths that would have kept you small. The things you thought you needed to survive were never meant to be your source, and the very pain they left you with became the tool God used to shape you for the assignment He had prepared long before they ever entered your life. This unveiling is not just about your own benefit. It's also about the testimony your life now carries. Because of what you endured and overcame, you can speak to others in pain with an authority that can't be faked. You can stand before those still bleeding from betrayal and say, "I know what it feels like, but I also know what it looks like to rise." That kind of credibility can only be forged in the furnace of real experience, and now your story becomes a beacon for others who think their ending has already been written. God's purpose always extends beyond the individual. Your restoration, your breakthrough, your favor, it will touch lives you've never met. People watching from the shadows, people who have never spoken a word to you, will be encouraged simply by seeing you thrive. They will think, if God can do that for them, maybe He can do it for me. That is the power of walking in the purpose He designed. It is contagious. It inspires faith in others, even without a sermon, even without an explanation. Your life becomes the sermon. And here is where the shock to the world becomes undeniable. The same people who once wrote you off will see you stepping fully into the purpose they never thought you could fulfill. The life you now live will be so deeply aligned with God's intention that it will leave no doubt, not in their minds, not in yours, that His hand has been guiding you the whole time, and they will be forced to confront the truth that their absence was never your end. It was the very beginning of the story God intended all along. This unveiling will bring a quiet joy to your soul, because you will finally understand that what was meant to harm you was used to prepare you. You will stop mourning the closed doors and start thanking God for them. And in that moment you will realize that their walking away was not the worst thing that happened to you. It was one of the best, because it cleared the way for you to walk directly into the life you were meant to live. And now, the conclusion. So here you stand, not where they left you, but where God has brought you. The pain they caused has been transformed into strength. The rejection that once broke your spirit has become the platform for your elevation. The silence they left has been filled with the voice of God speaking blessings over your life. They thought walking away would diminish you, but instead it positioned you for favor so undeniable that the world cannot ignore it. Look back, not with bitterness, but with awe, because every step, every tear, every moment of loneliness was woven into a plan far greater than you imagined. The favor you now walk in is not just a gift, it is proof of God's faithfulness. And it will shock the world, not because you demanded it, but because you trusted Him when you had every reason to give up. Let this be your confidence. The God who allowed them to walk away is the same God who is now walking you into rooms they could never open, granting you blessings they could never give, and writing a story they could never claim. Your pain was real, but so is your victory. And as the world watches your favor unfold, let them see, not just your rise, let them see the God who made it possible.